I tell you what, this camera is a line in the sand. Any gang stalkers that come along knocking, trying to cross that line, I will record them and expose them to the world. So those gang stalkers better watch themselves.
In my last video, Last of the Gang Stalkers, I suggested that demons are one of the driving forces behind the gang stalking phenomenon, especially when the targets of gang stalking are regular people whose way of life shouldn't in theory attract any kind of notoriety. I said that gang stalkers function as windows and conduits through which evil spirits may watch and physically interact with their targets. I haven't changed my mind on that. Quite the opposite, in fact. I continue to witness conduct related to demonically orchestrated gang stalking activity that defies an ordinary explanation. For example, without telling anyone, I routinely notice a surge in the agitation levels of people around me, or in the amount of hostility directed towards me, including from people I've never met before, every time I achieve a milestone. This often happens before I even find out about the milestone. I used to spend all day scratching my head, wondering what people's problem was. Then I'd find out about the achievement, and the whole day would make perfect sense. All day I'd see that same look of silent indignation in the eyes of perfect strangers, as if they were saying, "Who the hell do you think you are?" Or they would give me a wounded or vengeful look like I somehow cheated them or committed some grave offense against them. This clip is a textbook example of that. As you can see, it's approaching the end of a day where I feel like I made some real progress and I'm consequently in good spirits, when all of a sudden I get this intense feeling that I'm being closely watched. Not just watched, but hated, and I sense that someone is about to invade my personal space. So I stop and turn around to see the individual you're looking at now. I've never seen him before, but sure enough, look at the expression on his face. He looks like he wants to fight me. Or take this next clip, where a similar thing happens, although this individual's glasses hide the full intensity of his stare. But he never takes his eyes off me for a second, from the moment he sees me a good 10 meters away, right up to the point where we pass each other. It's only because we were walking in opposite directions and he eventually passes out of my camera's field of view that his stare is cut short, but he continues to stare right up onto the last frame that he remains in view, and I could feel him continuing to watch me after we had passed each other. Despite years of feeling like I'm always in the spotlight, always under constant surveillance, and despite knowing every time I wake up in the morning that there's likely more where that came from, the future is still worth getting up for, more so than it has in years, and ironically, this is pissing the demons off. It's ironic because the intention was that it was supposed to be me experiencing all the frustration. So the demons continue watching, always watching, hoping for a sign that the constant push and shove and heckle and jeer of their gang-stalking underlings and the incessant reminders that I'm being watched will start to take their toll. Now, there's two ways that this could happen in theory. Either I direct my resulting frustration outwardly by lashing out at people, or I direct it inwardly and become miserable or depressed. The demons were originally aiming for the first outcome, anger directed outwardly, because that's a good way to end up in jail. You see, I know I've been classified by local harassment agents as being weak in the area of controlling my emotions, responding to attacks with a great deal of anger in the past. The gang stalkers incorporated this into my profile as the best way to bring me down, by provoking me into a violent response, even if they have to initiate that violence. But while anger can certainly be a destructive force in your life if it's not handled properly, it's not as valuable an outcome to those who wish to use it to cause you harm if you can learn to filter it so that it ends up working in your favor. This is the direction I'm heading these days. There's room for improvement, but I'm much better than I used to be at distilling my anger and using it constructively. So rather than just seeking to provoke more angry outbursts, which only steal my resolve, I sense the demons have shifted the focus of their attacks. Their attention is now concentrated on the hope that the cumulative impact of all of these attacks will eventually cause me to turn my resulting anger in towards myself, becoming miserable and just giving up. If a target allows that to happen, it provides an opening for the demons to swoop in to mock and shame the target. By grounding all of their attacks in the reality that the target has given up and is therefore no longer fulfilling their purpose, the idea is that the target will be made to feel ashamed, to feel like a failure, and will therefore succumb to despair. And of course, despair can lead to some very destructive behaviors that end up compounding the target's misery, where the demons will be waiting, salivating from the corners of their mouth at the prospect of gorging themselves on all that juicy suffering. But it's not all evil spirits scheming from the shadows, at the helm of a vast army of willing sociopaths. It can't be. I mean, if I'm going to entertain the reality of a world where evil spirits exist and are actively trying to exert pressure on people to destroy themselves, I must also consider the existence of a counterbalancing force of benevolently natured supernatural beings that are busy out there helping people. If that were not the case and demons were just free to run amok, unchallenged, I believe this world would be far worse. Anyway, in their 20-year-long crusade against me, most of the gang stalkers I've encountered, exemplified by the likes of Whitebeard, have conducted themselves in more overt and openly aggressive ways. With this type of agent, there's no confusion about who is saying what and what is going on, and any video you capture of them speaks for itself.
Oi, stop it now! That's not Peter.
What am I?
You're a fucking monkey!
Okay, thank you.
But there's another species of gang stalker that I've encountered, whose attacks are craftier or more elusive, whose tactics lean towards a more guarded war on the mind as they attempt to push you into either doubting your senses or blindly lashing out with no way of proving anything. For example, in my last video, I speculated that I had gained some credibility from having recorded some solid video of Whitebeard behaving badly, which I then showed to the police. I predicted, therefore, that any replacement agents who came along to take over from where Whitebeard left off would likely opt for a more cautious approach than Whitebeard. The replacement agent I gave the code name Lurker bore this out when I captured video of him carefully checking his surroundings for the presence of any staff or anyone else who might disapprove of his behavior before engaging in a little racial provocation. This is an example of that craftier breed of gang stalker. I also talked about the links between various agents that bind this network of local community harassment agents together. For example, while discussing Whitebeard and the prospects of him making a return, I showcased him engaging in a conversation with two individuals. Here's part of that clip again to point out their relationship and some aspects of their interaction that I didn't cover before. Notice how Whitebeard looks over at me, pointing in my direction as he talks to his pals, as if whatever he's discussing is related to me. Then in response, you can clearly see the one in the middle briefly look up at me. As if in frustration, Whitebeard then rubs his head. Perhaps Whitebeard was expressing frustration over my camera. So both of them are obviously acquainted with Whitebeard, and it just happens to be the one in the middle who is featuring as the fifth and latest replacement agent in the next clip. As you may or may not know, I codename any notable perps to make it easier to understand who's who as a gang stalker. So I've codenamed this one Ventriloquist because of the way he sets up his attack in the next clip, trying to disguise the fact that it's him talking. Ventriloquist only recently began to make his own contributions to the overall harassment campaign, but as his codename suggests, he doesn't say anything where he can clearly be seen doing it. He instead turns his back to my camera as I walk towards him to leave the room before calling out, "Hey nigger." The point is that if I reacted and things were to escalate from there, there'd be no conclusive proof that Ventriloquist did a thing. It's a message to me from his demonic overlords that there are ways around my camera. It's a message meant to discourage me and take the wind out of my sails in thinking the camera makes me safe. You'll just have to take my word for it that I identified the correct perpetrator. You can quite clearly hear someone speak the words, which is not in doubt. Of course, I was there at the time, so I could better gauge the culprit's position. But like I said, the purpose of this style of attack is to sow doubt and mess with your head, make you feel like staying indoors and give up. Never.
Ham and eggs.